Hey guys, it's Will. So, one of the most innovative things that are happening in the world right now is the development of quantum computing technology. We know that quantum technology has been around for a very long time, from the LEDs that I recently installed in the kitchen. That a while ago, there was a time in human history where you would be amazed that you could touch that light without getting burned. And by the way, the remodel's looking better. It looks actually crazy right now because I just cut floorboards and stuff, got the baseboards in and things like that, but it's almost done. We got the fridge in, all the appliances are good. We got the counters ordered, all that stuff. So we're close. It's kind of a ordering thing where it just takes a while for the shipping, but we got a plan, it's almost done. And then most likely we'll be going somewhere. We may rent this place out. We'll see what the next steps are. And when you have quantum computing developing, there is this development of data centers happening. And one of the biggest things that I've heard from a lot of people recently in our data center videos, like we just did a video on, it was APLD. We were breaking down APLD, how they build data centers. They look similar to this, how they focus on uh, using what is these, workloads that are very efficient for the environment. And one of the comments was, "Hey, Will, I don't invest in data center companies because they might not be good for the environment." And I thought, it's an interesting point because on one hand, it's like you would expect more energy to be consumed as the advent of AI develops, and then you have more computing power for things like ChatGPT and Grok and Google's Gemini and Claude, Anthropic. There's some great new AI models that are getting released, and you'd say, oh, it's going to require more and more computing power. And on one hand, that could be true. On the other hand, how much computing power would it take in the past to run what we're doing right now, a live stream, having the video up, having this right here, we could see this quantum computing company, Rigetti. A computer was never able to do this, and now you could do it, and you can move your computer anywhere. I got an iPad here that I can draw, and I can cast it to the screen. Technology is gigabytes upon or terabytes on a tiny little hard drive, and it uses less energy. And so one of the theses for also the development of technology is that it will become a lot better. And I see Aaron commented. I see Aaron was in the chat for a second there. Appreciate you all. And I'm seeing that the number one thing that we start to focus on with quantum is that, well, maybe we won't see a massive amount of energy that is going to continually be sourced from the earth or what have you, that we get actually better and better, and that you have machines come out, like in this case the quantum computer, that would be more efficient. And so maybe computing power has this mixing chamber and it's able to process insane amounts of compute without using as much energy. And then I see Cheta Huang in here. It's good to see everybody in the chat. So recently, Rigetti has been the focus, and we see Rigetti surge. They've been on this very consistent uptrend. They got up into this $17.39 range. Now, Rigetti stock has been building a lot of momentum as a result of some of their recent announcements. One thing they recently announced on July 16th, so just about a week ago, was that they demonstrated their multi-chip quantum computer, and they have the 2-qubit gate error rate. Now there's two massive hurdles. There's a lot of hurdles, but there's two massive hurdles that are considered when we think about the development of quantum technology. And it's Rigetti that says it, it's Microsoft that says it, it is IBM that says it, it's Google. And the two things that they talk about the most with the quantum computing is the fidelity of the quantum computers and the qubits that they're able to have a reduced error rates, and that they're also, number two, able to store data. So one thing that's happened is you have a quantum computer, it works in tandem with the classical computer. And when the classical computer runs the computation or what have you into into the quantum computer, then the quantum computer can do the massive calculation, and then it can spit out some answers. But the data that goes through and all of the process that the quantum computer goes through, we're not very good at harnessing that data. And so the data side is a big deal, because then in order to really optimize, they have to have some data. So there's two things here. There is the gate error, there is the software side, and then when you're talking about, in this case, Rigetti says that they are, so imagine like a semiconductor. Okay, so semiconductors are what you see in like GPUs that are in your phone, that are in your computer. You know, they allow for the computer to work, or the phone to work, and they're highly efficient. But what quantum computers do is they are able to work in modalities like ion traps and pure atoms. And this is what means that we have extremely high frequency. So you can only calculate so much with a classical computer. And so Rigetti is focusing on being able to calculate things like how fast electrons are moving, and drug discovery. There's millions and millions and millions of potential cures for different diseases, but you have to go through all the protein peptides and find the right, the right thing, the right peptide that can bind so that you have a vaccine. And so in order to go through all the different options and get it down to a solution, it takes a massive compute. And quantum computers are aimed at solving those extremely high level problems. So they have an exclusive 36 qubit going, and Cheto Huang says they will rock it. I love it. I love to see it. So as we start to build out some of the, we start to build out some new analysis with Rigetti, there's really two things that I'm focusing on for me, at least on Rigetti, is my long-term position. I'm looking for this potential pullback here in the near term, but that we do see the company do very well here in the long term. What we have right now is a previous resistance level here at about $15. It did just push down to it and bounce, and we see it start to recover. It was about 8 months ago or so, it was just after this crash, a little bit less than that, when we went to the conference in CES in Las Vegas to get a really good idea of what was happening in the quantum space. And this stock not only was starting to get some eyeballs and starting to see some momentum, but they had just crashed, and it was because of NVIDIA's CEO saying quantum's 15, 20 years away. And then what we saw was a big recovery. It was here. I remember I had just got back from a conference, and I get a call from my dad, and I'm talking to him on the phone, and he says, "Hey, did you see the market? Did the quantum market like crash?" I said, "Yeah, Dad. I was just here in Las Vegas, and I went to the conference. I got to talk with IonQ, Microsoft. I was talking with the executives actually. I'll tell you, like, it actually looks like they're in a really good spot. I mean, there's a lot of great innovations happening, so we could see them recover." And kind of with my dad there, I'm like, "Hey, Dad, what do you think about getting in?" He ended up buying some Rigetti. So I just got off the phone with him earlier today, and he was like, "Hey, what do you think? Should I sell my Rigetti? Where are we at?" I'm like, "What's the plan? Are you long term? Are you short term?" Because he's up 300%, right? 3x his investment. He's really happy about it. And that's been kind of the story, right? Since the correction. I just saw some comments. I just saw a comment a second ago on the YouTube channel where someone said, hey, Will, I started covering, or I started getting into Rigetti back around here, and I've had really good returns. And so now that we've seen these really good returns, we have some positions too that are doing fairly well over on Rigetti, up about 50%, not that 300%. But what we're looking for really is potentially a continuation, but really just a steady trend. What would be healthy? A pullback to here would be healthy down to that $13 range. If it doesn't hold that previous resistance, which would be very bullish to see it make that 15% run and maybe even continue into previous highs, about a 34% increase. But really, what we're watching there is a potential slower market cap build, something more conservative, maybe even sell down to that $13 price range. I think that would make a lot of sense for Rigetti. Now, tremendously in a spot right now from a financial standpoint that does not look so hot, right? So they're definitely getting a ton of investment. So when we look at their balance sheet, it looks good. Their total assets are good. And Alex says, Rigetti's definitely the future. It's not a buy currently. Have you researched TSSI? I have. I would love to take a look at that one with you. And essentially, what we had going here with the balance sheet is that their assets, they look pretty good. They got a lot of assets. They've reduced their liabilities. It's the quarterlies that have been, they had a positive net income on some funding, and they're going to continue to get funding. But it doesn't mean really from a financial perspective that they're justified at the $5 billion valuation. Could they be trading for what could be? Absolutely. That seems to be the case based on the financials. I mean, revenues of $3 to $5 million a quarter are minimal when you see a $5 billion company. So that's just something that I think is very important to consider. Now, from the financial perspective, while it looks like that, the balance sheet has looked the healthiest it's ever been, right? We saw it looked not as healthy in 2024. It was at an all-time high, but their liabilities were high. And then the last quarter here, they really dropped their liabilities, and they're kind of super heavy on the assets right now, which is good for the balance sheet. So liabilities, they did go up a little bit year over year, about 33%, but the total assets went up 66% with their cash and short-term investments up over 100%. So they're getting the funding. We've seen it too in their recent news releases. They've had some new funding. It was Quanta Computer that came in with some big funding. And also with that Quantum Reauthorization Act, the initiative there that was passed for the $2.7 billion. And so those are the types of things that we like to see in the near term that can push the stock further. And so how many of you guys right now would like to do a full breakdown of some other quantum stocks? How many of you guys would like to go through IonQ? We could go through QBTS and see where the quantum stocks are at right now. And as for TSSI, there you got Vanman saying, hey, Alex says, what do you think about TSS? I have looked at that one. So the financial side of that company, their revenue's been pretty good. Net income's positive. Their balance sheet, though, is a little iffy with their liabilities pretty high there. You see their liabilities have gone up quite a bit. So not always do you have the liabilities looking good. Hola, mi amor. ¿Cómo estás? Sometimes Tammy comes home. She doesn't know that we're live, but it's fine. It's cool. I was just telling them at the beginning of this video that we were working on the kitchen, and I was like, yeah, we got the baseboards in, we got the appliances. So it's looking good. Awesome. So I see some comments saying QBTS, right? We see some other comments. So again, TSSI, I think it was the liabilities were high because they're investing a lot and they're buying homes, but overall, and the revenue looked good, but what was iffy was their liabilities were pretty high, right? That's what it was. Now, when it comes to QBTS, so that's kind of the deal with Rigetti. We're going to watch these levels. Could we see it continue to roar? Of course. When it comes to the long term, most likely just going to hold here. Very much looking for it to continue. When we started covering it back here around $1 a share or even less, it was really at a point where it didn't have a lot of eyeballs. Now that we get into this market cap and it's surged up, there's a lot of eyeballs. There's a lot of hype. I'm pretty sure if we search articles, you're going to see a lot of articles. It's up to $16 a share. And it's possible that we see it correct back down. Now, just as someone that's looking for a shorter term trade, that doesn't mean that we couldn't buy a top or buy up here and be okay. You know, a lot of times we were just trading this morning, and you know, I talked about how when you're in a position that you've sold or that you've bought into and it's gone down, you reassess, you say, all right, would I buy this right now? You could do the same thing at the top, but ultimately, what's going to be the key factor? Could we buy this? Maybe it's overextended, maybe it's not. Maybe that's a better probability for us to stack in our favor if it was out of support, for sure. But what's going to be the key for us? It's going to be, how many of you guys have gotten to a stock and you've said this, you said, we'll see what happens. We'll just see what happens. No plan. Maybe it goes well, maybe it doesn't. You might lose more than you win. That is what normally happens when you say, we'll just see what happens. The key is to write down, or at least have a clear outline of the type of results that you would like to get from entering it, and then have that risk very clearly mapped out, and the margins for profit just as clear. And sometimes we see the profit, but that's still a risk there. And maybe it means managing risk at a tighter stop than what you're going for. If we're going for that 30% swing for it to continue up and break out, it's quite an ambitious move, but it's going to require some tolerance, maybe a 3 to 4% stop. So I see the comments saying, yo, yeah, I've been there before. And I think that's really important to understand for long-term investors, just as much as short-term investors. Some people are long-term investors, but that's not even their type of investing that they want to do. They invest long-term and they ride big dips and they don't like it. And sometimes they sell on the dips because they don't maybe have the plan. If you're long, confidently execute the long and continue to add on the dips, But if you're not in a conviction to add on the dips, or it's something you want to just take advantage of that shorter term volatility that's going to spike the stock and lock in the profits, be disciplined enough to close that position and lock in those profits. And I feel like, so Alex says, what type of trader are you? A position trader? If I throw out ideas, I guess that matters. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I focus on the longer term outlook for stocks, and we add and we build positions for the long term, but we trade some of the shorter term swings in those stocks, and we don't trade anything that we wouldn't find intrinsically valuable and of integrity. That's why you see us go through the financials and jump through the news and jump through the partnerships and only go directly to the source, because ultimately, how many of you guys have ever been there where you buy a stock and you didn't really understand it and it turns into a longer term position than you wanted it to be? That's not a good time. But it's fine if that happens when it's a stock that you would be okay holding for 5 years, 10 years, because that's the type of thing that you're okay with. You know, it's like you're planning for that. And so if things don't go accordingly, that plan B is going to cover you in the event that happens. So let's take a look at QBTS. QBTS is D-Wave. D-Wave is at an all-time high. We saw it start to continue this trend in a correction. It did sell as low as about $13. That was, or almost there, about $13.50. That was kind of the level at which we were watching this $13 range, really to say, and that was up here when it was about $20 a share. We're saying it makes sense, it sells down. Now it sold down to that $20 range, and then what happened is we see it recover. Now, when we first started doing research on D-Wave, we were able to uncover some good things about the market. Some of the things that were interesting was the valuations in which they trade at. We've seen this company now at an all-time high, and there's targets for the company from people that are all over the internet. I'm sure you've seen them. I mean, we could search. Let's see what. Let's not talk about it. Let's search it, and let's not go to the financials yet. Let's just go QBTS stock, and let's look at the news. So here's a Barron's article here, and they're saying that it's a really good opportunity. Tip Ranks article here says that it has a price target of $22. Um, they also state in that article that one of the risks, which I do agree with, is that 85% of the revenue for D-Wave in their last quarter came from a single sale of a system. So what does that mean? If they don't, let's say, have a sale in the next quarter of the system, then their financials dip heavily. And that's actually one of the concerns that we've had for the stock recently. So it's definitely in the conversation as one of the things we want to watch, as they sold a system and their revenue spiked, but that's kind of what it looks like. So there's definitely Yahoo Finance articles. They're showing like some microchip stuff. They're mostly buy. They're saying $22, $25 price targets for the most part on this company. $20 price targets from Yahoo. The Motley Fool has a price target there of $22. Tip Ranks was $22. Zacks Investment Research is not as bullish, maybe. They have it actually ranked pretty good, but they say that it has a super high PE ratio, and that while it's year to date in revenue, it's looking overvalued. That's what Zach says. So, I don't go through these a lot of times, but I'm saying generally the price targets for this stock are $22. Now, when it comes to the $22 price point, hopefully the internet's working. You guys could hear me all right. I was up on the roof, like something happened. A gust of wind came. We've had like weird storms recently in California, or like wind, and it's been not as sunny the past few days, and it like moved the Starlink. It was out for like 5 hours, so that's why we didn't get a live session midday today, like we were planning on doing. But anyway, hopefully it's working all right. You guys could see me and hear me okay. Let me know in the chat that we don't have any skipping or anything like that. So what we saw with the all these articles and everything is generally that the price targets are pretty high. When we look at the stock, it's been hitting that $20 price point today at one point, and we've been watching their revenue and earnings. Now, the net incomes have been negative for the most part, but what changed for them recently is they saw their total assets continue to go up with their liabilities holding fairly low. And so the balance sheet looks pretty disciplined and good. And that's something that's been good for them. Now, there was just about 14 hours ago, and this is an article that I got to be careful of here, but it's over on Newswire. It seems legitimate here, that they have SuperQ Quantum Computing is pleased to announce the realization of its first revenue contract generated through its collaboration with D-Wave and Verge AG on a pioneering agricultural quantum optimization project. This milestone revenue was earned from Verge, a top multinational precision agriculture company, through a quantum project for enhancing Verge's launchpad platform for quantum annealing. The goal was to optimally plan the movement of robots in thousands of agricultural fields efficiently. The quantum component of the project, which brings together industry leaders to advance autonomous agricultural vehicle optimization, was executed by D-Wave in partnership with SuperQ Quantum through its predecessor, Stack. So we've heard of Stack Quantum before. It was used to be in stack, looks like now it's super Q. And what we don't see here is a contract value, but we are watching something here that is interesting, is that they continue to work with more companies. I think something that's really interesting about D-Wave is that they continue to work with companies that are outside of the US. Is that interesting? I mean, they work with NASA, so that's in the US, so not always. They work with Boeing, they worked with MasterCard, we know that. But the companies that have really turned into um, notable notable revenue have primarily been outside of the US. I mean, they do have that recurring revenue with NASA, but it's not huge. It gets bigger each year usually. But one of the things that seemed really interesting about them in their recent developments is that they have this like Ford Audison, they had the Pattison Food Group, they were working with NTT Docomo, and it's weird that we haven't heard updates. In my eyes, at least, it seems like you would want to provide a ton of updates and keep investors in the loop about some of the partnerships, for example, with Boeing. Boeing was there. They were saying, yeah, we haven't really done much, but we're looking forward to do it, and that's why we're working with D-Wave, because we think it can be improvement for our company. We haven't seen anything develop just yet. MasterCard, they announced that MasterCard one. Now, the biggest Cadillac MasterCard was like 2023, I think, but they haven't seen any updates on that. So that's the one thing that I would say is I would like to see some updates on. But when it comes to their financials, one of the catalysts could be potentially that they secured this Davidson Technologies, not a contract as far as we could tell, but that they have a partnership here, a mission-driven technology company supporting the Department of Defense and aerospace customers. Today announced the physical assembly of a D-Wave Advantage 2 quantum annealing system. It's complete at Davidson's headquarters in Huntsville, Alabama. So what does that mean? I mean, most likely you would expect a contract value to be included. So, or at least a sale value of some sort. So they didn't disclose that. And so we'll just have to see how it appears in the stock's financials in the next quarter. And if they can have not only a net income potentially that would be positive or keep up that revenue, but also show that their balance sheet still holds positive and very healthy as it has. We started covering them really back in December, but it wasn't until December that they had their total assets higher than their total liabilities. So before that, it was like liabilities were higher. It wasn't really as attractive. But with the new assets going up and liabilities down, that's something. I have a very small position long term that we have had for many months in D-Wave. But I haven't taken any big trades on the short term as of recently, just because I felt that it was selling down, and then it did break out here. We see it break out and find support on that previous resistance. So maybe it continues the bull run. But again, at this previous resistance here at $20 a share, this is where it got rejected last time. So we want to watch here closely, as this level is a level it recently got rejected at. Now, could it continue? Of course. I think the financials kind of similar to Rigetti. It would stand to be beneficial for them to have some better financials here in the near term. And good. I see Big says no lag. Jose says hi Will, SRFM. We could take a look there, Jose. And Old Red says QUBT. Could take a look. So let's jump in real quick. I'm gonna take a look at that one, and I see Evan says hey, in your list you have OSS, but haven't heard you talk about it. Yeah, OSS, we did take some trades in it a while back. I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was around maybe $4 a share. And one of our members in Stockmates brought that one up. Now, Alex says I like being the antagonist, and I would say for the most part, the last few months, we have been more of an antagonist of D Wave. I think it was right around here we went to their conference, and I got to meet Alan Barrett's the CEO. I got to meet a ton of different companies that were working with them. A lot of really, really great investors that invest in a lot of different companies, like hedge fund managers, people like that. And one of the things that we found quite prevalent there was that the marketing was really good. And I was just a little bit doubtful personally. And I'm not a person that's very doubtful. And it's not that I doubt them. I guess it's the right word would be um, failing to fully comprehend the validity of their statements. Not that they weren't valid, but that they felt not true, I guess. Does that make sense? So I was a little more on the skeptic side, and it was really good because it meant that, like, when we went to that conference, we were there, Quantum Bull, Majid got to talk, and we hung out basically till 2 a.m. and we were at that event till pretty late. And I'll tell you, like, it's good because a lot of the people there were super bullish, and we were pretty, I wouldn't say bearish, but we were more skeptic, more of an observer, I'd say. And Alex says that's the short term, 1 to 2 years. Don't you believe it may have dilution, or with low revenue, the probabilities of major pullbacks? Yes. And that would kind of bring us to this support level here. I mean, we did see it drop below it a little bit, or even the 200-day moving average, which would be a sell down into this level around $16 a share. Or if it's going to consolidate out, a sell down into $14 a share. But again, that's what I was saying right here, right? So when it was here, that's what I said when it reached that $11 price point. And this was like around the time of the conference. So this was when I was like, it should pull back. It did pull back. It pulled back to $5 a share. Then it reached that level again. And actually right here, I was thinking even, yeah, I think it's going to pull back. And it never really pulled back. Continued up, pulled back to $13. And then we saw it push up to $20 a share. And so now it's at 20 and we're seeing it here. And again, I'm kind of saying, yeah, I would see a pullback here into this $14 range, not even down to this $11 range. And the valuation from what you're saying, Alex, and the dilution we've seen, I think it would make a lot of sense. That seems like the fair evaluation given the market cap of $6 billion when, in the last year, they lost, $143 million was their value created. It's an interesting one, right? Because it's like, usually if there's value created, they would be receiving money in proportion to the value that they create in the marketplace. And so one thing to note, it's like, if we're at the revenue, they've had a revenue spike this year for sure. But if we're at the revenue that we're really kind of been at the last few years, 5 to 7, 8, 9 million in here, that's the blue there. But you see that net income go from, in 2020, -10, to then 2021, -31, 2022, negative 50 million. 2023, negative 82 million. 2024, negative 143 million. 2025, we're going to see over that this year. Maybe not, actually. Sorry, 2025, we might not see that. And they might have cleaned it up. And so it just, you know, their balance sheet looks fairly good with their assets up, but that negative income, yeah, I mean, it is something to note, you know, and I think a pullback would make sense. Yeah. Does that make sense? I mean, I really like that it exists, though. Yeah, I really like that it exists. So when it comes to Ion Q, we kind of went over Rigetti here to start. We went over QBTS. Got a question here. Someone said QUBT. Now, QUBT, if I'm not mistaken, is not a quantum. They're not the same quantum, right? They're a little different. Let's see what it is. Quantum Computing Inc. They've had really not making more than about $20,000 or $30,000 a month with a market cap of about 2.6 billion. But the balance sheet looks okay, 242 million with the total liabilities 21 million, so they have a pretty good balance sheet actually. It's kind of increasing year over year, but their revenue has been basically non-existent. And so we could look at them though and take a look. It's Quantum Computing Inc. Company focused on developing and providing accessible and affordable quantum computing solutions using integrated photonics. They offer products like their Dirac systems and photonic reservoir computers. Their business model is working on commercializing its technology and has received purchase orders from its foundry services. Their stock has seen significant growth, however, their revenue is relatively low. So that's kind of the story that we're talking about, right? So we're seeing their revenue kind of non existent. They have a lot of 3D generated images. Here is where they work with NASA, Los Alamos, a lot of research centers there. You got Purdue, Johns Hopkins, Qubit Engineering, Meet Topics. Looks like the SMU there. That's really cool. But what we're looking at here is kind of a tale of, are they truly delivering the value to the marketplace at this moment? Because I believe that in our day and age, something that will be a considerable indicator, you can look at the market, quantum, it's very hot, right? We know that. It's very hot. There's a lot of money into it. There's a lot more investments. You got SoftPoint investing hundreds of millions. You got Quantum Computer investing hundreds of millions. You got 2.7 billion from the US government. You got more coming in from Nvidia announcing their quantum computing. There's no doubt that the market is hot. But what do we do when we analyze a market? Well, there's two things that we look at. The first is going to be the financials. We're going to look at the profits, the revenue, the investor sentiments, and the net incomes. But the second thing that we consider is going to be the actual real world usage. And so I don't normally invest in companies if we don't see that real world usage. So from the investor relations side of things, we've seen some investor news. They joined the Russell 2000, Russell 3000 indexes. They got their financial results. They came in and they didn't really have much revenue. They've had private placement of common stocks, so they're doing the public offerings. they've been at some, different conferences and they've chatted, and we see the CEO fairly engaged in conversation. There was a cyber defense, cybersecurity event here that they went to, and there weren't any contracts that we saw publicly announced as secured for the company. And so while they have research on the industry and they share their research around optimizing oil and gas with quantum computing and optimize key for seamless, efficient oil and gas supply, or quantum computing will transform government IT and things like that. And then they talk about the investment of the Department of Energy. These are all articles about the market and the money that's being spent, the money that's being made. But as far as the real world usage, right? So Warren Buffett says, if it doesn't change the way that I chew gum, then I probably won't invest in it. So far, just haven't seen that real world usage with QCI, and the revenue hasn't been there. So while it's here, it's also been manipulated up to that $27 price point back in December. Saw it sell down, recover back up. And personally, I just think it's pretty overvalued at its billions of dollars in valuation with no revenue. Could it change? Of course. But we want to see that those connections in those emerging markets are actually aiming to be something that's real world usage. Does that make sense? Hopefully that kind of like, you guys get that, what I mean, why I don't cover it. It's because of the real world usage. That is what's going on there. When it comes to Van Man says, we'll see what happens with it. Tech is due to do a correction. Yeah, Michael, I think, when it comes to quantum, it's possible that that's where we could see some of the stocks, right? We've seen them kind of surge. Rigetti's kind of getting near that high. We didn't really touch on INQ, but we touched on QBTS there as well. It was kind of getting near the highs there. QBTS is at an all-time high. IonQ seems to be near an all-time high. It looks like it made this move last time. So we were bullish on IonQ. We're looking for this about 10% increase. It did happen with IonQ, but it pulled back down. And so now we're seeing, we can kind of get a look there. The market cap build continues, but we do see them at this resistance. So it is a key to watch. Chuck says, greetings, Will. Could you please go over RZLV? Yeah, sure, Chuck. Let's take a look at it. So RZLV. Let's take a look. So RZLV, since what seems to be their IPO in 2024, had a big sell-off down here. Faced some manipulation, it seems, up to that $5.50 range. Sold down aggressively from about $5 all the way down to $1. So a massive sell down, about, what is that, 90% or something like that. Then you see it push up, kind of in this trend, and now maybe getting rejected. So we can take a look at the financials. I'd like to start there for sure. Couple things to map out. You got this resistance level at about $3.50 that it just got rejected at. You also got this resistance level here. It's a rising resistance where it was holding above that 200-day moving average, that green line. Then you got the support level as well. What might be likely based on how it's trending, and we'll take a look at the financials, of course, would be to look here, this sell down about a 12% potential down to that 200-day moving average here, or something like this. So a little more, I would say, on the bearish side from a trend perspective. And it's possible too, you kind of just see, I mean, I don't want to make any speculation here, but you can also see that it is kind of like IPO'd, rejected. Maybe something like this happens where it just continues to get rejected. But let's give it a shot on the financials. RZLV, $740 million market cap. They've had some $50 million investment signals. take a look at some of their institutional holdings. Now, this is something that I wouldn't touch. And Alex says RZLV is a hard pass. And I'll walk you through why. But before we do, let's just do this one more time. And I'm not going to, pick out anyone individually that I'm, there's no reason to do that, but I just want to see maybe what you're exposed to. Oh, shout out to Tammy, my wife. She posted a YouTube video. She looks great. And also our daily live trading down there on the bottom right. If you guys ever want daily live trading, if you want the replays, you can join the channel. The other way you can get the daily live trading every morning at market open is in the second link in the description. So that is not what I meant to search. RZLV. All right. So with a quick glance, without choosing any, singling anybody out, I'm just going to show you here why we wouldn't invest in RZLV, Chuck. So this $1 stock could 50x. Do you see that? So this $1 stock is going to $50 with a nice watch and some guy telling you, okay? So first of all, someone's telling you that. That's the next big thing. That's what they say, right? 47,000 views. How could you not want to click it? The breakout's coming, someone says. Why it could be a game changer. Let's take a look here. This is poised to outperform here. Someone else says, catalyst announced. Stock market and with arrows going up. Fair value, $8 to $10. Wow. Buy signals, buying opportunity, buy now. This AI stock is ready to explode. They're getting fancy with it. So why do I share that with you? Because now let's go look at the financials, and I can immediately jump into the financials and you will have a good understanding, right? You see it. Chuck's like, hey, Will, I see that you've warned us about these videos. Have I warned you about these videos before, Chuck? You know it. But here's the thing. You got to look at the revenue, right? The revenue here, basically non-existent. Revenue's negative 79 million a quarter, negative 60 million a quarter. Look at the liabilities. So just for reference, the orange is the liabilities and the blue is the total assets. So what you can see is that the liabilities outweigh their total assets, which means they have 56 million liabilities and 3 million assets. In other words, that would be like me going to ask for an investment from somebody and I tell them, yeah, I'd love to buy this car for, let's say, $66,000. And they say, great, how much money do you have? And I say, I got about $3,000. Sure, could I get the car? Yeah, maybe they give me a loan, but is it a good financial decision? No, it's a terrible financial decision. And so they got more debt right now than they do assets, right? So not a good financial position to be in. Wouldn't touch the stock in any instance, and it's been pumped. So this trajectory that I mapped out where it gets rejected, sells down, could be more than likely. That's how I would see it. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, not singling any one person out. It's just like in general, a lot of videos like that on YouTube. Just, be careful. Yeah, and then Alex says also there's been reduced positions by 67%, aka big money isn't buying. Good stuff. Does that make sense, Chuck? With all respect, I don't want to I really appreciate you sharing the stock. Thank you for sharing it. Thanks for, sharing that with everybody. It's just something that now that we've seen it, now we've seen the financials, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, huh? Unless it does. If you see something I don't see, man, by all means comment or let, it doesn't mean it's not a good investment. It's just what I see and I don't see it as a good investment. And that's how it's been in my experience. is I wouldn't want to own a company. It never has been something that makes sense. Um, Now, could you see a spike? You could, but and you might capitalize on some of that volatility or something, right? That's the mindset, right? But what happens, right? Let's say you guys, if you guys get this, so like this is a really good question. So someone says, not related, but what happened with GoPro? So with GoPro, for example, like let's just let's go ahead and pull it up real quick. GoPro's down 5% today. Let's just take a look. Revenue about 200 million a quarter on average. Okay. It's not comparable. I mean, yeah, did it spike? Is that what happened? Is that why you're saying not comparable? Yeah, it's not comparable. It's not related, and it's not what happened either. Because GoPro went up, it got up into that dollar range. And sure, did it kind of pump? Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talking about it. But it's not terrible financials. Like they got pretty good revenues it's declined for sure, but they got fairly okay revenues. Net income's negative, yeah, but they still got more assets than they do liabilities. Whereas when we're looking at RZLV and you look at their asset, look how much orange there is. That's just way more liabilities. So G Pro, not as bad. They're actually fairly disciplined because they've been running the company for 10, 20 years. Makes sense. So that's just something that I think is a little different. And maybe they turn it around. It's not like they're showing that they're on the verge of bankruptcy right now or anything like that. That other company, though, on the other hand, possibly. Chuck says, makes sense, brother. Awesome, man. Appreciate you. Tanet says, Will, what do you think about NBIS? What do you think about it? Let me know, and we'll also pull it up here. What is your... Oh, Tanet. Do you know there's a Tanet Healthcare? I typed in your name rather than the ticker symbol. Nebius Group. So let's take a look. NBIS. What's up with this stock? All right, all time. How long they've been around? Came in 2011, kind of rushed up in through 2016 all the way into the height of 2021, even rallied in 2021. When the market went bearish, we were in a bear market through 2022 to 2024 there. It sold down aggressively down to $13. Saw a little bit of a bottom there, found a bottom. It's starting to push up, got back above that 200-day moving average. And so we see maybe some momentum carry itself up into these ranges. It's been holding above this EMA. You see this blue line right here. So in a bear market, it's going to be holding below this blue line. In a bull market, you're going to see it hold above. It's been holding above. It did cross above that 200-day moving average, which also would kind of act as a support. That green line, when you're in a bull market, it kind of acts as a support. When you're bear, it's more of like a resistance. You see that? So it did just cross above the 200-day moving average, and that's how it looks. Let's take a look at their financials so we don't get too... Tanet says, the reason I'm looking at it is because it's a AI and found good profits and roadmap. That's what Tanet says. Appreciate it. So it's AI and it's finding good profits. All right, let's take a look. $12 billion company. Looks like they're stationed out of Missouri, Kansas City. They work on GPU cluster at an Equinix data center, Paris. They have a data center in Kansas City, but they're over in Amsterdam, excuse me. So they're a foreign company. And looks like there's a fair amount of articles, quite a few articles. Not necessarily bad, but do see some hype happening. It's interesting to see their recent reports. They went from revenue of $1 billion to recently cutting down big and coming in with revenue a lot smaller, around 40 million, 50 million. And so they went from an insane amount of assets there, and they, let's see, can we do some math here? Their their financials look actually really good. Their revenue shows signs of volatility with big negative net income though, so I don't know why that is. That's not good on the financial side. Big negative net income. NB, what is it called? It's called Nebius. Nebius Group. Big negative net income there. Just keep that in mind. All right, so they have an image here, building infrastructure for AI. AI cloud launch first in class AI MLOps cloud with support for NVIDIA AI Enterprise. Okay. Something's not right though. Like big negative net income. Why? I'm going to take a look really quick at their earnings from the source. See if there's something we're missing. All right, so let's see. Cash equivalents, total assets. And then where's their liabilities at? So they're 3.5. Okay. Yeah, they're healthy actually on the balance sheet. And then when it comes to, like, they definitely got a lot more cash than liabilities, or sorry, assets. Revenues. So they went from $11 million in those 3 months to 55 million in the last quarter. 55 million revenues, but they ended up with a negative net income. Cost of revenues 29, which went up 29% or 231%. So they're not making money. Net loss 113 million, which was up 41%, which means they're losing more money. So there's nothing that's showing signs of growth from a revenue standpoint or a net income standpoint, but from a balance sheet perspective, they have a lot of cash. If that makes sense. So I guess I would need to know more about their company and kind of what they do. It's a little hard to tell. They got multiple businesses, maybe data center focused, education tech. They got something related to ride sharing or autonomous cars, ride hailing. Data partner for all stages AI development, generative AI. Yeah, they're losing a lot of money though. So they are an NVIDIA hardware and cloud partner. It's hard to verify that. Are they making money as a result of that? That's the question. So we don't have to go too deep, but I would like to know the legitimacy. Because when they say Nebius delivers first NVIDIA Blackwell general availability in Europe, general availability, like what does this mean? By integrating NVIDIA accelerated computing and enterprise grade software more deeply into our cloud platform, we are giving European innovators, whether startups, enterprises, developers, or researchers, access to the tools they need to build, scale, and deploy the next generation of AI applications. They got integrations of NVIDIA's accelerated computing platform. Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be valuable, but yeah, I guess they're pretty diversified. It seems like they're kind of saying like, we got GPUs, we bought GPUs, which makes our company more valuable. Not necessarily though, yet. 1 billion in convertible notes. They're definitely raising money. So equity financing 700 million. Yeah, I wouldn't touch it. Financials just, yeah, I wouldn't do it. Hopefully that makes sense. I mean, you could, but that's super volatile and their revenue's been down. But hopefully that makes sense. I mean, I do think that they don't have good profits, like you said, but they do have good cash. But they don't have profits. They're losing money every quarter. Um, so just, but I do like that they're an AI, like really good market. The market cap there, $12 billion though, when they're losing, is a little strange. Isn't that a little strange? Like negative net income, $12 billion valuation. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's up there. It's kind of hard to tell. But if you have anything specific with the company, like new contracts, things like that, we can take a look again for sure. All right. Vidal says, can you talk about LAES? Take a look. And Manny says QSI. QSI, we weren't really bullish on. I'm going to start with BDAL real quick. Let's go through LAES, but that might have changed there, Manny. I'll take a look. And then Rich says, have been liking KRKNF. We'll take a look there. Tanet says, agree. Awesome. And then A says, INVZ, solid for the future potentially. We'll take a look. So let's start it off with LAES, excuse me. LAES. CLSQ. All right, so I've been slightly proven wrong with CLSQ. I thought it was going to kind of continue down here, and then it did end up breaking out and continued some of the trend. Then we had a resistance level mapped out here at 430. It's been a couple months though. It's been at least a month since we've done LAES. But you see it's getting rejected, and you do have this overall kind of downward direction here, which kind of selling off. And if I had to guess, kind of see the manipulation taking place on the stock, some pumps on the stock. But let's take a look at it. So if I'm not mistaken, they provide some cybersecurity solutions for quantum computing, and that they're working on securing and building out software for what is going to be the quantum industry. I think they're pretty early to the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are in the game. They're early and they have this potential offer, but let's take a look, and I'll do this and then we'll look at the financials and see how it adds up. So Marty says LAES acts like a continuous pump and dump. According to the chart, it looks that way, but we're going to start off with product first, and then let's talk about it. First thing, they have this 3D image of something that looks computer generated. It's not a real photo. Develops and sells next generation quantum resistant secure microcontrollers related to trust services. They also have some stock images, and they have a lot of things: device attestation for Matter, device to cloud, device to device authentication, provisioning secured identities. They got all these different softwares: data protection, anti-counterfeiting, and brand protection with a picture of a drill. Kind of feels like a stock website. Access control with like a hotel card. Okay, well let's keep it serious. These companies trust us: Dior, Hublot, Tails, Cisco. 25 years of experience. That could be 2 employees that have some experience. Not anything crazy. Let's see what they got. So recently kind of committing to cryptocurrency treasury. Not a red flag, but it does make you say, like, why not invest it back in the business? That's my number one question. Then we look at some of their announces. They got some registered direct offerings. So they're raising money, which indicates that they haven't been able to make too much, usually. That's what that means. When it comes down to all of their they got semiconductors. We could go into it. They got all these things. They got a quantum lab. So the quantum threat, they talk about quantum computing being a threat with some stock images of a blurred keyboard. And then another stock images of people working on what appears to be a blueprints of a building. The stock images don't really do much for me personally. And then publications that state that we need to be ready for quantum. So it could be good, but it looks really fishy with all of the different industries they're in. But anyway, I haven't really seen any like hard catalysts when we looked at it. But let's go into the financials. Now we're looking at the financials. $412 million, so almost $500 million market cap. They're at $3, okay? And they got 67 employees. I don't know about you, but if I got 67 employees, okay, let me just say, I got about 8 employees personally in our business. All right, just can say that. I think it's 8. Let's see, got Tammy, Yoga, Alan, Fernando, Emily, Cyrus. Do I include myself? I think that was it, right? 6, 7. I don't know about you, but I'm trying to focus on like one thing at a time with 7 people. When you got 67 people and you're trying to focus on semiconductors and secure elements, secure ARM platforms, and the security, and then the root of trust, and then provisioning, and then solutions for device to cloud, data protection, secure and satellite internet, all these things. Oh my gosh, smart energy. What about a smart home? You need automotive, EV charging. Do you need consumer Internet of Things? What about telecommunication? Dude, so many things. So 67 employees, and but let's continue. Revenues are about $2 to $3 million per quarter. Annually, they did see some increases in revenue and then dropped off in 2024 with a negative net income of $21 million. Recently announced they're jumping into crypto. Nothing wrong with it, but it does say, okay, hey, that now takes probably about 3 or 4 people or 5 people to say, are we doing this right? We're getting $30 million of crypto. Are we raising money? Do they got to put 10 people towards that? Do they got to make sure that they're doing it taxes right? They're doing it on the balance sheet. I mean, after all, they are a public company. Do they have the bandwidth to go do the crypto and then also do, the quantum security? That's a real thing. I mean, that's like legit hard. It's a legitimately hard thing to do, quantum security. Then you got balance sheet, net in cash. See, it's up, net income's down about 500%. It's not there. It's just not there. I mean, they do got the balance sheet up there at about 32 million, but I don't know how updated it is. It's not there. So, at least from my perspective. And now again, could I be wrong and it surges and it goes up to $8, $10? Absolutely, it can happen. And Ace says, I like the way you look up stocks. You're like a stock detector. Man, it's just a matter of making sure that everybody has the information. But it's sometimes we get a little entertained. I know that was a little more, I guess we're having a good time. That's why we do what we do. Marty says check out the hype articles. Marty, you gonna make me do that? News, important validation, strategic investments, 30 million. It's possible that it does well, and I'm not knacking it. It could be good. I could be wrong, I could be wrong. Let's see what it is. Okay, it's not bad news. I haven't seen any, like, I like like the people that are covering, and I don't see any. There's nothing here that says, LAES is going to be a 10x stock. Because I know Majid. I went to a conference with him. He's very very in my experience, we've been on the same page of integrity wise and making sure to provide the information and not hype information. He's very good about it. I was just talking with Majid last week. I think we even did a video on his channel. But yeah, I think it's okay. I think we're all right. I don't see anything that's like hype, so we're okay. I did make a video about this about 6 months ago. I said, watch this before you buy LAES. Where was it at 6 months ago? It's July. So we are 6 months from July 24th. It was at around 460. It's about 330 now, but it could continue up. Anyway, it's okay. It's okay. So, Faith, Love, Peace says Rigetti. We did check out Rigetti at the beginning, and if you want to check it out, definitely feel free to. There was one more stock there that I wanted to cover before we ended. And Manny, for QSI, just to give you a full breakdown, QSI doesn't specialize in quantum. They're called quantum. They specialize in developing drug discovery and things like that. And they're more of a pharmaceutical company, if I'm not mistaken. And when it comes to their financials, they've been very negative on their net income. You see that negative net income there. Their balance sheet, though, I think has been healthy. It's been okay. They're not a bad company by any means. But they also aren't in quantum. They're called Quantum Sci, but they don't do like quantum computing or anything like that. Just friendly reminder. And hopefully that kind of helps. Personally, I think they got a good balance sheet, but they're losing a lot of money each quarter, as you saw. Okay, so A says, or let's see, Beadall says, thanks, Will. Got in at 4.5, been averaging out, holding about 3.9 now. Got it. Okay. I think that's a good approach. Well, guys, I appreciate you all. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. And just a friendly reminder, we opened up a new offer for Stockmates. There's a special link in the second link down below if you want to get lifetime access to Stockmate. Not sure how long lifetime will be here, but if you want to join us in the sessions, there's a comment from Alex that says QSI he liked, however it doesn't move, meaning the market doesn't care about it much. Interesting. And Rich, I tried to search that stock that you commented, but it didn't come up on my Robinhood for some reason, so I'm not able to take a look at it. Faith, Love, Peace says Jesus loves you. Love to see it. Love you too. So excited earnings we got for this week. We'll be watching some companies into next week, but it's kind of fizzled out. We had some earnings this week. If you guys want the targets for every single week on these stocks that we have for IBM, Tesla, that's actually heating up next week, and then also get some really good investor insights from some good investors in Stockmate. Lawrence has been crushing it. He's number one on the leaderboards. Johnny's got some good stuff happening. I've had a few members have tremendously good returns. Just got off a phone call with a Stockmate that has grown their portfolio from 600,000 up to 900,000. Another portfolio that we had was David. He grew it from 14,000 to 28,000 in about 3 months since joining Stockmate. But anyway, we go live at Market Open. If you want to be there tomorrow morning, it's the second link in the description. Would love to see you there in our live session that we have every day, 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's pretty early in the morning if you're on the Pacific Coast, but it's 9:30 Eastern Time. You can listen to it. A lot of people listen while they're at work, or you can tune in and see our entries and our exits as I trade there every morning, Monday through Friday. If we're trading, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just review the markets and what we're doing. But if you want that more hands-on, surround yourself with other investors, learn how to invest in AI, quantum computing, space tech, as well as what's happening in data centers right now, then I would encourage you to simply take a look again. Just take a look at it. The second link down below for Stockmates if you want to join us there. Rich says Kraken Robotics. Real quick, Rich, I will take a look at it for you. One moment. Let's see if we can find it. If we can't find it, though, ooh, I don't see it. I don't see it. Man, I need to maybe have another viewer. I just don't invest in Canadian stocks as much. Sorry about that, Rich. But I took a look. But don't we have a call next week sometime? We'll do it. We can go over it then. Alex says that he's up $50,000 in the last 2 months. Cheers. Love it. Yeah, we did some math recently. We found that also a fair amount of investors in Stockmate are millionaires. Actually, over 2 dozen people in Stockmate are millionaires, which is absolutely insane. I absolutely love to see that because I get to work with them every day, and you get to work with them every day too. I was just talking with Lawrence because he's a large contributor in Stockmate. He has some good stuff, new contracts, press releases that come out related to certain companies that we cover that are super helpful, and a little bit of nuclear. Even we're talking some nuclear. And one thing that Lawrence was talking about was that I noticed. I was telling Lawrence, I was saying, Lawrence, some of the best information that has come out on our YouTube channel or that we've been able to share has originated or come from people inside of Stockmate. Isn't that crazy? So it's just tremendous. A lot of really good stuff in here. The other thing that I was noticing, and there's David for 100% all-time returns in 4 months. Shout out David. I'm showing his account there. But man, from 14K to 28, that's tremendous. Looks like there's even some other comments there. Lance went from 60 into 120K. Tremendous, man. I think even there, Lawrence says after joining, that's a little higher than what he experienced after joining, but he's wondering how other investors are doing. I love that. Hey, I will catch you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one. And one of the best things I'd say for the market right now is have an idea of your plan and what you're doing, even if it's a long-term or short-term. Reassess it, write it down. That's a good move in the market turbulence right now. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you guys.